Three, four.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Niner Faithful.
What's up, everybody? It's Adam from 49ers Insiders.
We hope everyone had a blessed week, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode, our 2-year anniversary episode. We're going to go ahead and talk mandatory minicamp. You know, Dante Pettis, Jimmy G. Cool got in for a snap that Adam thinks is staged. I didn't see the highlight of it.
I didn't say thoroughly. I just said it was almost like tossing a little bones to the 49ers faithful, like, yo, it's coming. And
let's do it. I'm down.
Yeah.
So we're just going to, have your typical trying to kill time to training camp show. So real quick, before we get started today, on a personal note, it's not officially the 2-year anniversary. That will be Wednesday, which, by the way, will be happy Juneteenth to everybody, all my those people out there. But it's 2 years. I just want to thank everybody, Kim, Miss Debbie, Nick, Adam. He was a fan before he became my co-host. So everybody that kind of listened to me from the beginning, man, when times got dark, it was everybody that that kept me going. All y'all that kept me going, and seeing everybody listening every week really means a lot to me. Thank y'all. So really thank you everybody for your support.
Yeah, now we're here, my man. And like I said, I want to thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to be your co-host. And it's been some fun times. And obviously, I was just thinking to myself, like, hey, 2 years later, I mean, essentially you were optimistic 2 seasons ago, obviously heading in the first year of the new regime. So you didn't know what was going to happen, but obviously it wasn't the best year. And then last year, we grinded through it, through the downtimes. And I know if a lot of people out there, I'm sure, realize as well, a lot of people kind of fell off of Twitter or just simply were not tweeting out as much and stuff like that. It was almost like when Jimmy went down, like the season was over. And I told everybody straight up, I was depressed probably the most in my entire life. And going back to probably since I was like 20, I'm 30 now. But that was a very depressing moment. But I also thought that was an opportunity for all the true 49ers faithful like us to kind of show themselves, through the bad times, not just celebrating when everything is all good. So, props to you. I guess props to me a little bit for keeping the show going, and hopefully third time's the charm, baby. And here we are.
Yeah. So real quick to get on a personal note between you, Adam, I don't think the show would be as successful if I think we give a good balance to each other, bro. Honestly, no. Real spit, I really do. I think that, I'm gung ho, I'm all Niners. I'm let's bring up the past and, future, all that. And you keep it level where, I could ask you what was Kawan Alexander like last year. And I think it really gives us a good balance of the more I'm the more Niner historian, and everything like that. Of course, being a little older.
And that's my expertise. We're very well balanced. We make a good yin and the yang, and that's what life is all about at the end of the day.
Exactly. So, just really want to say thank you. I know Kim's in here now. Thank you so much, Kim. My biggest fan right there. Another good news, we officially have, hold on, Niner Faithful Radio hats. I know people were asking for them. We officially have them. We got the tank tops now, too. I'll go ahead and post pictures and everything in them tomorrow, so you'll be able to see better. But we'll have those available for Niner Faithful Radio. We'll have those available on Niner Faithful Radio shop. They're good probably tomorrow. So I think that pretty much wraps it in. Everything else we'll wait till the end. But so getting started, I think Dante Pettis is a good place to kind of start off this week. Everybody kind of said he's coming back strong, which is really making me, be happy. And I know if you go to Niner Faithful Radio's Facebook group, Kim went ahead and shared an article that talked about how Jimmy G. Cool and Dante Pettis were maybe going to break out together this season. And it was funny because I remember at the State of Franchise last year, when I saw Dante Pettis, I was like, I didn't know how he was going to get off the line. Honestly, I was like, he's going to get manhandled. And of course, he got, little do we know, he got that, wiggle and everything to him, and he was fine. But I never seen him play, so but hearing that he put on weight, I think that's. I don't think we're gonna have a number one receiver,
Right.
this year and everything like that. But I think letting Pierre Garçon go, among other factors, but the biggest reason was a dependence on Dante Pettis and how he really started to show himself towards the end of last season. You could see he was starting to get it. Nobody ever gets it, but he was starting.
And let's not forget how it all started with Jimmy Garoppolo when we were down what the score was at the time. I want to say we were down probably like by at least a couple touchdowns at that point.
It was like 35-3 or something.
But I mean, that to me, that's like that showed Jimmy Garoppolo's kind of like ceiling type of thing. Because obviously he's nowhere near it, but it showed his natural playmaking ability. But I thought the same thing for Dante Pettis when he made that catch after Jimmy Garoppolo was about to get crunched up. He ended up going out. We all know the pass throws it, but like make that sit grab, get the feet in bounds. Like that just told me right there, like this guy's. I mean, it just wasn't. I mean, do guys like that? I wouldn't say all the time have plays like that, but it was more than just a coincidence. I feel like it was just almost like God shining a light and say, "This guy's gonna be good for y'all. Don't worry." You know what I mean? Because that was a lot of people were essentially tripping, in my opinion, last year. Part of it was because of the real dire need for an edge rusher. They're like, Dante Pettis. I was just like, I trust Shanny. I trust Shanny. I was like, I went from like, yeah, I want an edge rusher too. But at the same damn time, I'm like, if Shanny thinks we need a wide receiver, I'm all in 100%. And like you talked about, I always bring up the stretch. Right before getting a second injury, he was averaging 84.5 yards at 1 touchdown per game over a stretch of 4. But yeah, if it wasn't for 2 knee injuries, shit, he probably would have had 900 plus yards, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I think with the added weapons this year, and with the added weapons this year,
it's insanity.
We don't need him to show, 100 yards and 9 catches and 3 touchdowns every week. If he can have a 4-game stretch where he's averaging that, and it's, let's just say the last 4 games of the season in a perfect world, he has it towards the last 4 games of I'll take that all day. I think that what you're going to see is you'll see games where Kittle balls out. You'll see games where Dante Pettis, Trent Taylor was he was I don't want to say called out like in a bad way, but he was singled out by Kyle Shanahan, somebody who improved, and his health clearly was a factor. And I, not to toot my own horn, but I've been saying that Trent Taylor is the key to the beginning success that the Niners want to have this season, just because
he could be, man. Because
when you take away the essentially 13 games Jimmy G Cool missed last year, I look back to 2017, and I know it's a different year and all that, but I look to 2017, and I see that the chemistry that and this is Jimmy Garoppolo not having any history with anybody, nothing. This is him getting thrown in and for whatever little bit of practice he had.
1 month in,
and clearly he had a connection with Trent Taylor on 3rd down.
But dude, you've been seeing what I've been doing on Twitter lately. Essentially, I've been going to Gift City, just kind of like I'm essentially just kind of riding the waves right now until training camp, and then we all know training camps are going to come and go way too damn fast. So then we're all going to be looking forward to preseason and everything like that. So I've been going to Gift City, but I literally was I was about to tweet it, and I was like, this is kind of stupid because you just can't say it. Who didn't look better when Jimmy Garoppolo was at quarterback?
Oh yeah, of course.
Every single guy.
Juice Murphy.
And he's always good for one of those. Hopefully it's 2 of those this year. But Goodwin looked a lot better. Trent Taylor looked a lot better. George Kittle started. Was that part of it because he was a rookie? Maybe part of it. But George Kittle started coming around, obviously, with Jimmy too. Everybody played. Matt Breida, he started balling towards the end of the stretch and actually carried over last year. Damn that damn ankle. But everybody looked better, man. And that's what's so exciting about this year. And you're trying to guess Jimmy Garoppolo's stats and how many yards he's going to throw for. We have the over-under right now about 4,300 yards. But I think I was literally going to say earlier to you, it's almost going to be – it's like the traditional basketball saying, you're gonna take what they give you. So like you
Mhm.
brought up, one week is gonna be Kittle, the other week is gonna be Pettis, maybe the other week is gonna be Goodwin, the other week is gonna be Debo, the other week is gonna be Rita's or Coleman's week. Juice might have a game where he has like 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, honestly speaking, it's gonna be insanity. I really don't even know what to say. I feel bad, and I don't play fantasy football anymore, but I
I
feel
know.
bad for fantasy owners.
I never personally have been a big fantasy
I
football
was
owner.
personally just to touch what. Why is that? That's just
Oh, first of all, also real quick, forgot. Thanks, Kim, for putting in the comments. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers that will
happy
watch
Father's
this.
Day to you, sir, and
Thank
everybody
you.
out there.
Thank you. But yeah. So see, to me is what I learned is the worst thing you could do for fantasy football, or at least what I've always been told. The worst thing you could do is just pick your favorite team. You know, fantasy football is based on who do you think is going to ball out, and I think it's one of the reasons I kind of always been
Value, all that gets
yeah,
involved.
exactly, those type of things. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's always been why I've been garbage at Madden.
Really?
Yeah, is that that has a little bit to do with not having the greatest X's and O's knowledge.
Right. I didn't even know how to play. When I first picked up Madden, I didn't even know what the hell football was.
yeah, but
And I'm not good at it. So that's
I
a
will admit
repetition
the
in my
little bit of football, a lot of the football knowledge, X's and O's, football knowledge has been from Madden and the Madden tips and studying or whatever. But I always pick the Niners.
Yeah.
And then during the heyday of my video game playing days, because I don't play a lot of video games now.
Me neither.
That was when the Niners were garbage. And so the Niners were one of the worst teams in the league, so they're one of the worst teams in Madden. And I've never been that type of. I want to play with the Niners.
Yeah. Well, back in
and so it's kind of been the same thing with
know.
fantasy. It's been the same thing with fantasy. It's always kind of been, hey, I always want to pick Niners, and also the part is I don't know the league that well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, of course, Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know who.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about fantasy football and fantasy anything, to be honest. That's how I originally got into baseball. I didn't know it pretty much hardly squat about the players or anything like that. And next thing you know, you play fantasy, you play any type of fantasy sport, you really start coming around to learning the league because you're adding and subtracting guys, you're looking around, you see who's really been balling, who hasn't, yada yada. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about fantasy sports. You start learning a lot of the guys with it. I personally stopped playing because not necessarily the responsibility of every week having to do this and that. And you brought up about picking your own players. A lot of times that's how you can get gems because you know your own players. So let's for example, this week. This year, like Debo Samuel, when is he going to go in the draft? Maybe he goes towards the very end when you have pretty good value. But I just stopped playing because I just stopped caring about on the weekly, like rooting for this team because you have this player and yada, yada. I just reached a point. I'm kind of too old for that. And who knows? I might change my mind one day. Maybe somebody throws me an invite. I say, screw it. But that's how I feel now.
I wouldn't be opposed to any listeners who are listening right now. By the way, I see people coming in. Thank you for joining us. I wouldn't be opposed if somebody wants to do a fantasy league, or put it in the comments what you would think about even doing picks. Maybe starting a weekly picks type of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
We could do that type of thing. Also, before we get in, I want to touch on the Marquise Goodwin situation as far as the Olympics. I have a feeling we're going to differ a little bit in our opinion, but real quick, we're also going to do. I think
don't go
Wednesday.
Crazy on me now.
Wednesday, I was thinking about starting our fan interaction show. I was thinking maybe about 6. From what I heard, we have. I should have talked to you about this off air, but Castbox has sent me an invite to join their broadcasting service, and they do. So the podcast will be available on Castbox right now, and also you have a live feature where people can call in and text in, totally free.
That's sweet.
So we'll set up a date before Wednesday to do a test run because I don't want day one to be a test run.
Hello.
But I was exactly. Also I was thinking Wednesday because that will be our official 2-year anniversary, and I can't think of a no doper way to celebrate than start a new kind of segment type of thing.
I literally was thinking that earlier. I just didn't want to say it on there.
Let's do it. So we'll go ahead and do that. when the details get finalized, I'll go ahead and put it out. But be prepared for those who want to interact with Adam and myself, or maybe sometimes just myself, or maybe sometimes just Adam. We'll figure it all out. But so
We were just
I
talking
have
about
a
ball
feeling
distribution and
doing
everyone
the
gets
show,
high every other week.
right? Doing the show together for almost a year. I know you pretty well, bro. To think that I don't think you think it's a problem with Marquise Goodwin doing the Olympics.
I mean, 2020, right? To me,
Yeah.
this is how I see it. I literally was thinking about it yesterday. It comes down to two different directions for Marquise Goodwin. Either he's not going to brace all the competition, because I really didn't hear anything as far as OTAs go, as far as Marquise Goodwin goes. Like, positive, negative. A lot of
They
times,
said
no
that
news is good news.
they're looking to use him in a more
Oh yeah, I
specialized.
heard that going back. See, to me, that always sounded like, to me, a motivation factor. Once again, like, hey, do I want Debo Samuel to come in and light it up starting week 1? Hell yeah, I do. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I really don't have the expectations for Debo Samuel. I mean, is it just me? Like, they can ride and vary from here to here. And over here doesn't have to be bad. It can be like, let's just say this is average, or he can have an electric rookie season. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Like,
I think he's going to be very boomer bust.
I don't think
I
he's
don't
gonna
want
be
to say
more bust.
bust.
As far as
I
production
don't want to say bust. That's the wrong word to use.
from a fantasy perspective, could it
Yeah.
be like that?
Yeah.
100%. And that's what you can
100%.
call fantasy a little bit in terms of projecting your guys. But I still think this has been a way for like Marquise Goodwin essentially to light a fire under his ass. And it's either pretty much, we want you balling at this level if you want to get your snaps. So he's going to take it two different ways. I think this is going to go. Either he's going to have a really solid season where next year he's actually contemplating if he actually wants to thoroughly go on with the Olympics again. Or it might go a little sour grapes that next thing you know, he might end up bouncing out early. I'm not saying cut or trade or anything like that before the season or during the season.
I'm not sold. Next year would be. I'm not sold on Marquise Goodwin being on the team next year.
I feel the exact same way.
This might be not an issue. My whole thing is
with a bang. Sorry to cut you off there. Is he going to go off once again on a good season, or it's just not going to be that good, and his mind is already elsewhere? So, and that's going to be a factor into his maybe projected downplay. I think he's going to have a solid season. I expect him to get top 3 wide receiver snaps. I wouldn't be surprised if it's number 2. I think that's what they're trying to fire him up to do, and use Debo Samuel for a lot of underneath stuff at the slot and all that. We know he can play inside and out. I really don't know how it's going to go, but my expectation from Marquise Goodwin is essentially to have top 3 in wide receiver snaps and hopefully production.
Well, I don't think he'll be top 3 in receiver snaps if he's not being productive. I think what we're going to experience, I think maybe a little bit this year, but definitely starting next year, is that a lot of things were done for necessity. For example, signing Pierre Garçon. That was essentially Kyle Shanahan wanted a receiver he could trust, but that was to get something. Signing Marquise Goodwin. Well, now as you're seeing that this roster is developing, and we're in year 3 now. By year 4, 5, 6, we're gonna have it. It's just players are gonna be pushed out, and so we don't need Marquise Goodwin to be, a every down player. We can use him in a specialized role because if he's not being productive, if he's not being a top 3 receiver, we don't need him to be a top 3 receiver. Maybe last year and definitely in 2017, we needed Marquise Goodwin to have top 2 receiver snaps. We needed that. This year, we don't necessarily need that.
Well, okay, but hold on. Right now, you're kind of jumping the gun, though, as if Debo Samuel's day 1 ready right now. He's ready to get the number 2 snaps, right?
Not even Debo Samuel.
He's been out with a hip injury until training.
So what really got me thinking is this week, what I was really contemplating on is I'm really flirting with the idea of Jordan Matthews. Because, I know I've came out and said that, I think he's going to make the roster and everything. And I kind of went through and, of course, hearing what I've heard from OTAs and discussions, of course, with us and fans and listeners of the show. What I've gotten is I think Matthews is Jalen Hurd insurance. because they haven't seen Jalen Hurd yet.
He's been
So
I think he participated in rookie minicamp, but very, very limitedly, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and he didn't
He was
participate.
recovering from off-season surgery himself.
Exactly.
It sounds like, yo, we want you full go for training camp.
Exactly. So everything I've heard is he'll be ready for training camp. But I think what people, they love the idea and giving the mad scientist his toy and all that. But we need to understand this is a man who only played receiver for a year.
Right.
And so, an IR stash for Jalen Hurd or something of that, I don't think so either. But I'm just, because
I think he's going to be he's going to be used situationally.
And so
on the down distance, what we need.
My issue, I do too. I think it's red zone, primary.
Third down, whatever. Third and long.
My issue is my thing with Marquise Goodwin. The issue with this whole issue is that I need what I said this year is I need people who I can depend on for 16 games. For whatever reason, whether it be personal reasons, whether it be off the field issues, whether it be whatever type of issues I need. So if I need people who are 100% sold in, 100% Niner football, that's what I am.
Yeah, I understand.
I understand, it's the Olympic, it's an honor, serving your country, things of that nature. I totally understand. But maybe to me it'd be different if he hadn't already experienced it. By all means, that's probably not everybody.
Sorry.
It's all good. Not everybody gets to be an Olympian.
Well,
right?
I think part of him wants to do a one last hoorah before his body's too out of prime.
And cool, but to me, it's okay, Marquise. Are you? It's I don't know. It's just to me. I don't want to seem grumpy and Mr. Grumpy Gills and everything like that. And
I mean, I was going to say, you're already going to use something he wants to do next year negatively against him right now?
Oh, I'm not necessarily even saying this year. I'm not even saying.
It sounds like you're kind of low-key riding him off, though, and not really pulling for him because of the way he has his eyes set on or his mindset on possibly next year.
I want Marquise Goodwin to ball out. I mean, I remember when we talked about, preseason, I think Marquise Goodwin is one of the early keys to this.
I think so too, especially as guys like Debo and Jalen Hurd come on.
Season to success. Because of the same thing I said with Trent Taylor. Jimmy G. Cool clearly had a connection with Marquise Goodwin, so much so that, let's be honest, that's what really got him that 3-year extension.
With Trent, how good he did with Trent Taylor. Like I said, I keep going back to and see how damn good he was with Marquise.
No, I was talking about how good Jimmy G. Cool did with Marquise Goodwin is what got Marquise Goodwin the 3-year extension.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe so. I believe they were on the border, the line, and then that's what pushed him over.
Right.
And
honestly, all I was just trying to say is I wouldn't put it so set in stone that Marquise Goodwin's for sure going to go to the Olympics. I mean, I hate to
not even qualify.
Way. Marquise Goodwin is a man of God, and whoever does have faith knows a lot of times things just kind of either fall into place or just kind of happen in a weird way, or you had your eyes set on this, but now things change. That's what life is all about. So maybe he has a solid enough of his season, something happens, and maybe he changes his mind. Maybe, like I said, I can tell Marquise Goodwin a lot of times gets in his own feelings about things at times. Maybe he feels like he's deserving of this. Maybe he feels like, why is my life going like this? He's obviously been through with his wife having 2 miscarriages. I will always go back to last year, Marquise Goodwin, when he got hurt in that damn opener, when that piece of turd from the Vikings, I think it was Kendricks, the linebacker, he just stuck out his leg just enough, and it got Marquise right on the damn quad. And obviously, when you're an explosive athlete, especially like Marquise Goodwin, that's going to affect you a lot. So I feel like his season, how sometimes you get started so bad, you're like, shit, I want to redo right now. I mean, it's like a video game. It's like not hearing the intro to a song. You just want to replay it. That's how I feel about Marquise Goodwin's season last year. He showed some good flashes last year that he still got it. Packers game, 2 touchdowns, just a deep bomb. And you said, as far as I see him as a top 3 receiver in this offense this year. like I said, I don't know if other guys are going to come along eventually, this or that. It doesn't matter my production as far as Marquise Goodwin goes, because when he's that third guy out there, let's just say it's Kittle, Debo, Pettis, running back, whatever, he doesn't need to actually even catch the ball. He's such a deep threat. Like, and take the top off the defense. He literally just opens up, like, he's that electric. He opens up everything else for everybody else. And guess what? You want to not concentrate on him? Catch you later. He's going to go deep.
And that's what happened is Shanahan.
He's a lethal weapon.
Shanahan was literally asked. I remember literally Shanahan being asked after the Packer game, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially saying, "So where did that come from, Coach?" And he was like, "We just happened to got the look. We hadn't got the look, and this time we got the look, so we took advantage of it."
Yes.
And so let's be realistic. What the fact is those 2 touchdowns essentially really should have won us that game.
We choked. How many ones did 49ers low-key kind of choke away last year? I would say at least 4 to 5.
And so my thing about it is even going back to, how we talked a little bit in the pre-show meeting, and we're not going to visit this, but even how we talked about, Jimmy G. Cool not stepping out of bounds. We're not going to get into that, but what I'm saying is it seemed a lot last year where in the Vikings game, we were talking about the touchdown to Pettis. It seems like last year there were moments where maybe in 17, hell, definitely, 16, where that would be where the game got away. Like, Jimmy G. Cool gets sacked on that play. The Vikings, go down and score again, and the game gets away.
We all remember that game easily could have gone different in our direction.
That really could have.
Obviously, it was on the road. I mean, let's bring up Alfred Morris fumble at the goal line. Whiskey Tart missed opportunity on interception that would have had it at, like, we already would have put us in the red zone. Barely over missing George Kittle twice, one for a deep bomb, one in the end zone. Both of them really different. Kirk Cousins essentially threw 2 dimes for 2 of their touchdowns on solid coverage. And that's where things. I guess I don't want to go too offhand and talk about that, but that's just how the game goes. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of a few plays and old traditional cliches. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't overgrade hard or overanalyze people sometimes. Like you give up a touchdown, and someone's like, "Oh, you bum," whatever the hell. Like, guess what? You're always not going to win every single matchup in the NFL. And if you want to say a guy is garbage or not that good because he gives up a couple plays, essentially. I mean, that's on you, but that's the game of football. I mean, it's just like the 49ers. Whenever we're tearing up the other defense or we're abusing a certain guy and all that, is he really completely garbage, or we're just out scheming them and putting guys in position to make plays?
It's to the point where it's if you talk to any football player in the NFL, and when it comes to, how could you lose to a lesser team or just how could you lose in general, the people on the other side of the ball get paid too. Their jobs are on the line, their livelihood for their family, their dreams too. And so I think that, that's why to at least say players. Now, whether the organization, we've talked about this, last year, and we're not going to get off on a tangent, but, the thing that I talked about is that, when you're a football player, this is why I don't think that the lockout will last the season. Is as a football player, you only have so long in your prime. What do they always say? NFL means not for long. Yeah. So you only have so long in your prime. You're always only one play away. NaVar Bowman talked about in his retirement, speech. He talked about how the play in Seattle. He always talked about should he let him score. How much different would his career been if he just let him score? And so I felt last year that most teams in the NFL are about 8-8 talent-wise on paper, quote unquote, talent-wise, 8-8. What separates the teams that will turn into 10-6, not, 11-5, 12-4, playoff teams to the teams that go 6-10, 5-11, 4-12. Is those few plays every game that turn, and so to get back to the original point I was trying to bring up is that, even that Kansas City game, people forget that if that George Kittle, if that or no, sorry, yeah, the George Kittle touchdown that was the
That's CJ
LBI was
on his
called.
first play. Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
CJ Beathard's first play. That's a different ball game. And honestly, probably, watching the football, what would have happened is Kansas City just would have ran the clock out. We still might have lost, but you never, hey, Mahomes pisses himself, and throws a
One
pick,
play.
and
You know what I
you
mean?
know, you never know what could happen. And maybe like in Philadelphia, getting back to our boy Ian Williams, maybe for his only time in his career, Justin Smith runs down a receiver and punches the ball out. Like,
Yeah. And
probably the only
that's
time
all
that
she
Justin
wrote.
Smith.
That was enough of pretty much getting over the hump. Like sometimes you just need. I mean, and literally, I mean, it goes like for a lot of things. Sometimes you plateau, right? You feel like you plateau. You're always about to get over that hump, and something just seems to pull you down. But like as soon as you get over the hump, you can be trying to lose weight, gaining muscle, whatever the hell. Um, you're struggling with something, but as soon as you get over that hump, then you're pretty much ready to take things to a new level. And
I
that's what
do
I feel
too,
like.
and I think that's what if you tell me the reason, let's say we go 8-8, 9-7, and just barely, even maybe 7-9.
I
You
wish I
know,
could pull up the tweet that I had of last year, the averages of how much we lost the games by. I know the
oh
one
yeah,
that
yeah,
always
yeah.
sticks out is I calculated 10 games by an average of 8 points, which is one possession, touchdown, and 2-point conversion. But it still goes to tell you 10 out of the 12 games, average of 8 points, with all the derailing of injuries, year two of the scheme, rookies, young team, no Jimmy for 13 games, the whole whoop-de-whoop. 10 games by an average of 8 points.
Is the difference between being what?
I
A
mean, I
playoff.
feel extremely optimistic about that.
Basically, you just said a statistic to prove my point. That 8 points, that few plays, a first down, a touchdown instead of a field goal here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's the
No
inches,
turnover and actually getting the touchdown there.
the inches of maybe that, a ball is being, difference between a ball being caught and a pick. Maybe the inches is the
Catching the
difference
ball to
between
continue a
maybe
drive
us
or
going.
not catching it or overthrowing it and the drive doesn't even go anywhere.
So it's funny because if you say even at a rate that we win those games at a 50% rate. So if the same exact scenario, we have 10 games this year that are decided by 8 points or less. If we win even half those,
That puts us at
well,
9 wins.
that puts us at 9
Then it
wins.
seems like we are overly cherry picking. I'm sure obviously people do understand because then it's like, well, how do you know you're going to win those other 4 games that you ended up winning?
Exactly.
So I understand that part, but still, regardless, though, with the talent that we had to win those 4, well, one of those games came from Jimmy, but the
Yeah.
other 3 didn't. One of them was against the Raiders, Broncos, and then Seahawks. Seahawks were a playoff team. They were fighting for something, so we can't say that one was like a complete
And look,
a
when a
bum of a
team
win.
beats you 10 times in a row, 11 times in a row,
What's up?
when a team beats you that many times in a row, you
Oh,
can't ever discredit beating them. Like
and it
it's
was
hard to it's hard to say that.
during a
And
playoff hunt, dude.
I think that maybe it's funny. Everybody talks about the comeback in 80 against the Saints. When we were down, I believe it was 35-3, and we ended up winning 38-35.
Uh,
And it was Joe's first big NFL comeback. And everybody, and Bill Walsh had said that in the locker room that the rest of your careers you will never believe that we're out of a game because we came back from that. You can never tell yourself we're out of a game ever. And that's why Joe always said that Joe never liked being pulled from a game because he never felt like they were out of it.
yeah.
And so, to me, I think with that Richie James touchdown, that might be and I'm not trying to say history repeats itself and going that far, but I'm just talking about a little moment that gives the team confidence. And yeah, maybe a lot of that team isn't still there, but this is a team 2 weeks prior that embarrassed us in Seattle. And so
If you can win with less, I'll just tell you that much. Once again, that's why people. I really don't care. You know what I mean? You can be working for NFL Network and all that. At the end of the day, like you can give me your own personal opinion about the 49ers, but at the end of the day, what weight does it even hold? At the end of the day, I mean, shit, even my opinion. Like someone can be like, who the hell is Adam? Who the hell is this guy from 49ers Insider?
right.
Like, why should I care what he has to think about it? But when you stack everything up the last couple of years, and you notice the circumstances, the injuries, how early you are into the new regime and the schemes and all that kind of shit goes, and all the talent that you've added, and you're getting everybody back healthy, and you lost all these games by an average of this amount. How can you not literally, like, once again, the expectation for the 49ers last year was a borderline playoff team. A lot of people expected playoffs last year. A lot of people say we were close, yada, yada. So when you factor in those 10 games lost by 8 points, all those injuries, yada, 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 adding all this talent this offseason, how do you not expect to have the expectation that the 49ers are a playoff team? In my opinion, I think they are. I'm going off a projection that I just gave you that has some analytical standpoints and circumstances that
backed up by facts.
So I'm not over here just saying, yep, year 3, 49ers are playoffs. I just told you the reasons why it might possibly occur. In my opinion, they will. But
and that's why,
like I said, I think everything is going the 49ers direction to have the magical year 3.
And see, that's what I like about our show, because we're real. Like, we make it very clear we are Niner fans. We are faithful. We believe. We make that very clear. But to me, what separates you from just every person who thinks the Niners are going 16-0 and I'm just going to believe everything,
Right.
And us, is that I can back up mine with stats and things of that nature. And so when people say, if somebody were to say, who is Adam, who is TJ? Well, who is, Skip Bayless? Skip Bayless is who? A football fan that went to college and just got a job at the Mercury News and then got a job at ESPN. Something very well that you and me could do.
That's the part that irritates me about the media sometimes. They cover so much that it's just like, I feel like people need to literally, like I said, these people who cover certain teams, you don't have to be a fan of them. Obviously not. But if you're not fully focused and dialed in, you're covering way too much. If you're covering way too much, then you're not covering enough in a particular area. Let's just say the 49ers, for example. So that's why a lot of times I'm like, why do I care what Nate Burleson has to say about like the 49ers and yada, yada?
Exactly.
Does he thoroughly factor in circumstance? Does he know how many games we lost by this amount and winning with less and all these things that factor into it? I mean, I'm
does
sure
he know? Does he know?
His producers tell him whatever, but at the end of the day, does he know as much as like some of the information that I spit out of why I think the 49ers will have a magical year 3?
So my thing about it is this year, I'll put it to you this way. Whatever ESPN analysts, except for, essentially media members, but, your Good Morning Football, all that, I'll watch more of Niner training camp than they will this year.
Yeah.
Essentially what they get it from is they get them from their colleagues who are there or sources from the team. That's really all a lot of the my sources.
And a lot of the content they already have written in front of them.
And so my thing about it is I watch the, training camp, so, my whole thing about it is, we could back it up with stats. So I think that, little moments like that for a team, for a team that didn't have a lot going well, that Richie James touchdown against Seattle, to me, is a really turning point, because that was a moment at the team that believed that, hey, we could stick around. And literally, when you've lost a team that much, especially a team that just embarrassed you a couple weeks prior, you can't take that beating them for an example. In overtime, that game was grinded out. The Niners could have easily lost that game, and you know what? People would have said, obviously nobody at the stadium and us faithful would have felt that way, but there would have a lot of people been in the NFL that like, wow, the Niners, to hang around with the team and take a team to overtime that just embarrassed you a couple weeks ago, that's in progress. But to actually win, those are the type of moments and the type of what's the difference between that and any other game we took to overcome? We made the plays necessary. We learned how to make the plays. And so 100%. That's why playing, and still playing the games and, playing your heart out and things of that nature are important, because, we were 6-10 in 1980. that game didn't matter. For all I know, we could have lost draft position.
Yeah.
And all that. Maybe we didn't get this player, but maybe that led us to getting Ronnie Lott instead. Like whatever. We could go through those scenarios all day. The point is that 9 years later, in a game in January where we were 92 yards away from a touchdown, and Joe walks in the huddle and looks at his teammates and points out, John Candy and looks at his teammates and says, "Hey, we can do this." It's probably because a lot of those teammates remember what he did in 1980, and hey, you know what? He brought us back 35-3. He can fucking march 92 yards down the field. You know what I'm saying? And so if Joe doesn't do that, who knows if they have the confidence in him? I mean, I would think so because of the catch and the things he did before that. But it all started with a little play in 1980.
And obviously, there's plenty of, and you're 100% right, but obviously that's where it goes. Like, does somebody just come out of left field and say, "Yeah, guys, we're going to go down the field and score"? Hell no. Like, all these things, like, what somebody's character, what type of leader they are, and all that. Obviously, away from that play, on all those practice spent, all the times in the film, all the times going out to eat and all that.
Yeah.
It's either you ride or die with somebody based off of not just what they simply even do on the field a lot of the times. You know what I mean? Like, it's either you have that type of character and leadership where guys want to ride behind you, or if you don't have that quality, or you want to be like essentially the main alpha and the leader, for example, Joe Montana, to be able to carry an office and all that, you have to have that in you.
You have to have some swag.
You need to find that other person that you are going to ride behind. But the point is, at the end of the day, there's more than that, taking place for somebody to kind of ride all in with you. But I was just going to say, too, as far as, from based on that huge win in Seattle, like you said, a lot of people might not even remember that anymore after that, at this point in the season, at this point in the offseason, I should say. But another beautiful thing about why I think, once again, everything is just kind of slowly but surely going to go towards the 49ers direction to have a great year 3. All those injuries that took in place, and we've talked about this before, is all the young guys that were obviously put in the position. Some of them were actually healthy scratches, in my opinion, to get the young guys the playing time when the season didn't matter at that point. But you have all those guys that got experience, and once again, you have all those injury reserve reinforcements kind of coming back. So now the 53 from top to bottom. I know we have a 90-man roster right now, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The top 53 is going to be pretty nasty from a great standpoint. You might not have a lot of, I guess, going into week 1, it might not look like you have a lot of like high-end firepower, but just wait and the season unfolds along. And remember, going back to 2011, I know the circumstances were a lot of different, where a guy that wasn't seen as really anything became a borderline, if not an actual Pro Bowl player. So that's what I kind of expect to happen this year.
And I think,
if not, like I said, at least very solid production when everyone gets a piece of the pie, offensively and defensively. I really don't know.
I think that the difference between being playoffs and not playoffs this year is I think being able to squeak out as many wins as possible. Because I'm a firm believer. I don't think it's fluke that in the 2 years of Shanahan, we've played our best football towards the end of the year. I don't think that's a fluke. I think that's the team getting better and things of that nature. So to me, the season rides to don't bury yourself early, because it's going to take time. Like, for example, the Lions game last year, we didn't play our best game that day.
No.
We really almost lost.
Yeah, barely good enough to win.
But it didn't matter. We squeaked out the win. So, I'm okay with ugly wins in the beginning of the season. I'm okay with that. The thing is, don't bury yourself.
Right.
And if we can go into, late November, early December, in the, 2 games, even 2 games behind, let's just say the Yams, maybe 1 game behind Seattle for the last wild card spot and 2 games behind the Yams for the division. I like our chances.
Bring up how much of a difference, and I kind of hate to bring up old stats a little bit, but screw it. We have new listeners, the whole whoop-de-woo, and if not, you might have forgot, and we're going to refresh your memory. But being tied for the second worst in the NFL, I believe, with, on top of my head, 32 turnovers, offensive turnovers, that is. Imagine shaving that down just to say to 16. So then you average, what is the difference between averaging 1 turnover game and 2 turnovers a game?
It's probably, and it's not so much. I don't think it was so much. I mean, it's obviously the turnovers, but I think what caused the issues is that the lack of creating turnovers. So if
worse, as we know.
exactly, so my thing about it is if Jimmy throws 2 picks in a game, but our D forces 5 turnovers,
Then you're all good.
depending on when those 2 picks are, obviously, that might not. A perfect example is look at Cap's first game against Green Bay, the divisional game against Green Bay. Cap opens the game with a pick-6. But because of the things that our defense was able to do, it didn't obviously, kill us.
Yeah.
And so I think that shaving the turnovers to, let's just say, even 20. I mean, 16 is okay if I won a game, but let's just say 20.
Yeah.
Right? But just by forcing so many more turnovers this year,
which is going to happen.
Which is going to happen, that 20 is going to be like cutting it down to 16.
Oh, yeah.
Because we force so many fumbles, because we get so many more picks, and things of that nature. And so, because I'm a firm believer in that, I believe when, it comes down to it, calm, cool, and collectedness, aside, I think Jimmy G cools more closer to Brett Favre than Joe Montana. In the sense is that I don't look at Joe as a gunslinger.
I think the perfect projection, or not projection of Jimmy, like the perfect what's the word I'm looking for?
Comparison?
Yes. Yeah. But pretty much like my favorite thing to do is getting 2 people and making them have a baby. So if Joe Montana and Brett Favre have a baby, it'd be Jimmy Garoppolo.
If Brett Favre and Joe Montana?
And if they had a baby, I think it would have come out looking like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I do too.
Because he's so accurate and stuff with the ball that it's a lot of Joe. I'm not saying Brett Favre wasn't, but he wasn't as accurate, and he has some of those Brett Favre.
See, I think the issue with when I say Brett Favre, I'm thinking that Brett Favre had touchdown, but Brett Favre threw his fair share of picks. Let's not pretend like he didn't. He was almost the Babe Ruth of football. Babe Ruth hit the most home runs, but he had the most strikeouts.
Let's be honest though about Jimmy in those 5 games in 2017. He was playing with house money. I'm not saying he didn't care if he didn't get a turnover,
of course.
So some of that Brett Favre guns.
One against the Jaguars was tipped
because based on the circumstances, like he was able to throw some of those balls in super duper tight windows. Because if you don't, then
that's exactly what I think is going to come. Is that I believe Jimmy's ability, his accuracy, and his quick release, make him have the ability to make throws that most quarterbacks can't make. So let's say if the average quarterback completes those throws 1 out of every 10 times, maybe Jimmy completes it 4 out of every 10.
Right.
Let's just say, Jimmy he's that much more better, but there's still the 6 other times he doesn't complete it. And to me, that's not it's when I don't like to say something when it works. It's, oh my God, Jimmy's the world's greatest. And when it doesn't, it's what the hell he's thinking. You got to take the good with the bad, And so you can't complain if it worked. If, you can't be mad at Jimmy saying, well, it worked last time, or it works majority of the time. So, it's kind of like the Roger Craig syndrome. I hate to have Roger Craig's Hall of Fame career be tainted by one fumble that just happened to happen in the NFC Championship game. To go back to your tweet, for those who be offended by cussing, you might not want to listen to this part, but for your tweet about Kyle fucking Williams and the 2 fumbles. See, the second one doesn't necessarily piss me off as much, just because that's a football getting punched out.
The final one.
The first
one pretty much
is the one that really
raised his knee, and the second was swatted out. Unless I had it backwards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The first one hit his knee. The second one hit.
The second one he was carrying, just didn't carry it tight. And
carry the ball tight or whatever. But footballs get punched out. To
You
me,
get careless and somebody comes from the side or behind.
I won't get too deep into it because then I'll go off on a tangent and scream and cuss and yell. But to me, that's a lack of
8 years ago.
no. I will never get over it. To me, it's a lack of focus and effort. It's a lack of focus and effort to think that even because see even off the fluke shit about it is that if I'm Tom Coughlin at the time, if I'm Tom Coughlin at the time, I challenge it just off the fact that you never know. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the NFC Championship game. The only other game that's probably going to have more cameras is the Super Bowl. So the fact of even if he knew it hit him, but even if you think that it didn't fall on the fucking football and it's not an issue, we go to the Super Bowl. Anyway,
maybe
tantrum avoided.
Yeah.
So,
well, go. I mean, hey, while we're on the subject and we're talking punt returns, that is a kind of $1 million dilemma I have in my head right now. Who is the best man for the job?
And see,
the guy probably who broke the all-time NCAA record, Dante Pettis. We see how electric he is with the ball in his hands and how good he is freaking after, either catching it or whatever in punt return situations. I've been throwing some gifts out there. If not, go back and look at his college highlights. He obviously as soon as the ball hits his hands, the guy makes moves and he can absolutely go. But he's just so important, in my opinion, that you can't take that risk.
Well, how did he get that knee injury on a punt return?
On the first one, is that how it happened?
Yeah, it was a punt return.
Oh, really? I did not recall. Good way to bring it up, and that's what I'm saying. He's so important to this offense. Okay,
this is where, to me,
about this though, if you're losing, do then maybe.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. Yeah. You need a touchdown. How could you not put the NCAA all-time touchdown return?
That'd be like a fourth quarter.
It's like back in the day when the Crack Girls used to put Dion back there.
But man, a part of me still says so. If it's week 2, week 3, do you risk somebody really that early just to? I don't know. I guess that's exactly. Go off your gut instinct and you say screw it.
But to me, I think it's Richie James, because to me,
I think it has to be Richie James.
It has to be if Richie James can prove that he can hold on to the football.
Well, shit, what the hell has he been doing all offseason? I hope he's been working on that shit quite
he would be look, if he hasn't worked on it, then I don't want him on the team because that means you're not taking it seriously.
I'm sure the coaches have told him, like, hey, we believe in your upside as a wide receiver. I literally thought about this the other day, but pretty much the way for you to make the roster this year is you're going to have to be on point with special teams, on punt returns, and kick returns. Yeah. That's what I would tell him.
Yeah. If he wants to make this team this year, it's going to be kick return and punt return. And let's not forget Victor Bolden either. And nobody's ever mentioned him because I think just most people say it's
he's gone. Unless you're just throwing a throwback name.
Oh, he's gone?
He's been gone. I think he's like on the Bills last time I checked last season.
Oh, that was right.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad.
But let's just go down the list real quick. Dante Pettis, too important. Deebo Samuel coming off the hip, drafted kind of high. In my opinion, he's done it before. I think he's too important too.
But if Richie James can't do it,
Goodwin has never really done punt returns. I think he can do it. Why the hell wouldn't you not be able to do it? I would love to see him do it. Would that happen? Is it going to happen? Probably not. Jalen Hurd, recovering from offseason surgery, in my opinion, I think he'd be a great candidate for the job with his old running back ability and his good and what he's shown in yards after the catch. I don't think that's going to happen either. No. Kedrick Bourne, automatic no. Trent Taylor, sure-handed. I absolutely love the guy there. But now that I have him healthy, do we want to risk him on punt returns? In my opinion, put him in situations where he doesn't really have a chance to return it for yardage, but you need somebody there sure-handed just to make the catch. Fair catch.
I'll put it to if Richie James can't go, if he hasn't proved himself trustworthy, I think you almost have to go Trent Taylor.
Well, then you automatically have to go, you
would have at that point in time you would have to go Trent Taylor Because you're not going to put Dante Pettis down back there.
And with the punt returns, after talking about this now, that's why now I have it down to pretty much Richie James versus Jordan Matthews for the number 7 wide receiver spot if the 49ers decide to carry 7 wide receivers. Because that is also the $1 million question too. I mean, my 53 is partially influenced by projected 53. Part of it is obviously, yes, I think what the 49ers are going to do. But the other part of me is like, kind of like I guess you can say the little fanboy side out of me where I hope we carry 7 wide receivers. I hope we carry 4 running backs. And I'm not so confident about that. But the reason why I bring this up is I'm not so sure the 49ers are going to carry 7 wide receivers in my own personal opinion. I don't actually think it's going to happen. I think that's going to turn into the third tight end. I think the tight ends are just too important in the Shanahan offense that you need for blocking and all that kind of stuff. And I think then you don't want to take Kyle Juszczyk or because then it screws up that dynamic out of the backfield. But Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, and Jerick McKinnon, obviously they can see. That's the thing about Matt Breida, in my opinion. He turned into a good pass catcher, but I don't think he's at that point yet. And I could be easily wrong. Maybe he does take that to the next level this year of actually being lined up as a wide receiver and actually running routes kind of like one. But Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon, we know can do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think
my scenario with the 6 receiver scenario.
I think it's going to be 6 wide receivers.
So what if we keep 3 quarterbacks? I don't think that's going to happen.
I think I literally probably tweeted this like last week. What happens if both guys, CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, they ball out so hard? Nick Mullins is automatically a lock, in my opinion.
If CJ Beathard balls out,
if he balls out though, nobody offers you a trade. You know you probably can't cut him, probably because he does so good.
If both quarterbacks ball out, now the thing Matt Mayoko said is they're comfortable trading, either one. But if CJ Beathard, I know it's an even competition. We all think it would be BDN, and I think that's because I expect BDN to outplay CJ Beathard. I don't think CJ Beathard is going to play that well. Or I shouldn't say that. I should phrase it where I believe that Nick Mullins is just going to outplay him. But if it's tied, if Nick Mullins CJ Beathard doesn't have to clearly outplay Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins has to clearly outplay CJ Beathard.
Is that what you feel?
That's how I feel.
Okay.
That's honestly how I feel. And I think it's going to come down to the draft pick.
You watched the Shanahan press conference. We already talked about he's already brought up. That's why I feel like at the end of the day, it is going to be 2 quarterbacks because I think he just values the other 53 spot way too much. But once again, sometimes what does it come down to? Do you want to sell something for $2 when you know it's worth 10? Because you're like, I don't have any room for this, or do you want to say, you know what, for $2, I'd rather keep that shit? I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to. So
yeah. I mean, I think that the Niners won't be punked into a situation. I don't think we'll be punked into giving them away for a 7th,
right?
DJ Beathard for a 7th round draft pick or anything like that. No, I think that they would expect a reasonable return.
Well, the funny thing is, and Shanahan's, of course, 100% right. And Shanahan's press conference, that almost seemed like, and part of that could be, once again, you always got to look at things from all angles. You really got to look into things. It sounded like to me, Shanahan was essentially favoring CJ Beathard and kind of making him sound like he's in the lead. I don't know if part of that is trying to boost his confidence up because of how Nick Mullins played last season and played relatively solid, especially when you factor in all the circumstances. But I think CJ Beathard actually might be in the lead slightly because I remember in the press conference, somebody asked him as far as, so pretty much CJ Beathard was taking them more the number 1 snaps compared to Nick Mullins. And then Shanahan said they would rotate on the daily. So meaning one day he would get the number 1 snaps, the other day Mullins. But it still told me that CJ Beathard was the one that on the first day got the number 1 snaps.
Yeah. It's because CJ's the draft pick.
To build his confidence, or is that because I still believe in you? And here's the thing too, you know what I mean? Not you don't know what I mean. I was gonna say too, fair or foul, CJ Beathard can maybe have the bigger ceiling still compared to Nick Mullins. While Nick Mullins looked a little better right now.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with that. And let's put it this way. And then I think we'll wrap up on this note. But I think that Shanahan wants CJ Beathard to win the job. Now, I don't think he'll let his ego or the fact he's a draft pick and things like that do something detrimental to the team where he doesn't, pick the best backup. But I think if you put a gun to Shanahan's head and said, "Who do you want it to be?" he would say CJ Beathard.
Man, like I said, it's just I love both guys. I absolutely love both guys. I mean, it's just like they're. I mean, I think they're both. I mean, Nick
I'll
Mullins
give
is
credit.
from the South. I think CJ's originally is he from the South?
CJ's from the South.
I think he was born in
They're both from the South.
the area, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Tennessee.
I know yeah, I think they're both Southern boys. And like I said, I think that's what it kind of comes down to. Nick Mullins looked a little better last season. And let's not forget, though, remember CJ Beathard's first start against the Chargers, which should have been a W if it wasn't for Garrett Selleck at the 4-yard line, 5-yard line, bobbles that damn ball that could have went from a touchdown to when they bring it all the way back to our 20 or 30-yard line. But
those first couple games, if things go a little different, even the Green Bay game, there's things that if there's a couple things that go different, maybe we're not having this conversation about Nick Mullins. And I think that those who love CJ always feel like, why did Jimmy come in? Because CJ got hurt. Why did Nick Mullins come in? Because CJ got hurt.
Yeah.
And so, it might even be that, hey, if it might boil down to, hey, CJ, you got to learn to keep yourself out of harm's way. Because, you're one – what do they always say when you're a backup in the NFL? You're one play away from being the starter. Like, yeah, of course, knock on wood, please, Lord. We don't want that scenario to happen unless it's a blowout. But, how Shanahan, as a head coach, that's your job. Your job as a head coach is to prepare for all scenarios, including the worst one. That's your job as a head coach.
I was about to bring up, in my opinion, I feel like Shanahan was partly at fault for some of CJ Beathard's turnovers and essentially bad play at times. Same thing happened with Nick Mullins, but in my opinion, he designed the play callings for Nick Mullins to get rid of the ball a lot faster. It was almost with CJ Beathard, like he was saying, like, all right, like you've been here for a minute now. Obviously, what I'm really trying to come down to saying is I feel like Shanahan could have put him in better positions to get rid of the ball early, but he was almost like, screw it. I'm not really expecting to go anywhere far this year. So I'd rather continue to try to maximize the playbook, meaning plays that take long to develop, AKA the quarterback being back there longer, which led to obviously some of those turnovers and big hits and sacks and things along those lines. So I feel like CJ was kind of partially handicapped by Shanahan's play calling, but just my own personal opinion.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thing about it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up for right now. But so
it'll be interesting.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll just make it quick, like 30 seconds or less. If Jimmy goes down, same team, Kittle has another amazing year, all that. Jimmy goes, who do you? But I'll ask it a little different. Kim asked this question, but I'll ask it a little different than what she asked it. Who do you believe gives us a better chance to be a playoff team, roster constructed the way it is right now? Nick Mullins.
If you're going off of last year, I guess you'll have to go with Nick Mullins, just from the simple fact that he was the last man in there, and performed relatively well. But I have to bring this up again. When you're going in a year 3 and you're talking 2 rookies that were rookies just 2 years ago, I would hope they're more advanced when they were last year. So what I'm trying you essentially got to flush both of their plays down the toilet, in my own opinion. It's a different situation compared to Jimmy. Jimmy was already in New England for 4 years. So both guys being a year 3 right now, I would really expect and would hope for them to be more advanced than they were obviously a year ago. Not at this, like towards the end of the year, let's just say. So I would kind of judge it based off of this offseason if I was Shanahan. Because the easy answer would be Nick Mullins. He was the last guy in there. So, you know what I mean?
I don't think that. And also, I mean, let's be realistic.
I would give CJ Beathard the opportunity if he's actually looked just as good, if not better, this offseason.
Yeah. I think that's really what it boils down to. If it's tied or
this is good. I mean, I'm sorry. He has to have it. He has to legitimately at least be a hair ahead.
That's what I'm saying. For me to be okay with CJ Beathard being the backup quarterback, I have to think that there's been a significant enough improvement that I believe that he won't get
And
outplayed.
maybe Nick Mullins didn't progress enough. Maybe he just kind of
Yeah.
something. But we saw like the video not too long ago.
Maybe he reached his ceiling. I wouldn't think so in year three
Yeah,
of your
second
NFL
year
career.
guy that was
But
undrafted. But we've seen some guys come in and kind of looked a certain way, and they never really progressed too much from that point. Straight up.
well, and also I think what I've always heard, scouts or things like that always say is in the NFL, it's with a quarterback, it's a race between when your mind catches with your body. Can your mind catch up to the experience or whatever before your body gets beat to hell.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the argument of sitting or the Aaron Rodgers versus the Alex Smith. Is Alex got the experience, but he didn't. But he got beat to hell.
Yeah.
Aaron didn't necessarily get the in-game experience, so there were probably a lot more rougher edges. But he. Oh, okay. What's up, Go Hard? I was wondering if you were going to bump in and everything like that. You just caught us actually right as we're about to leave. But before we get out of here today, go ahead and shop Niner Faithful Radio Shop. Wait. Okay, so I made up this little rhyme to kind of do the Niner Faithful Radio Shop thing different today. Okay, so the day you waited is finally here. We got Niner Faithful Radio gear. We got hats, hoodies, hats, shirts, and tees at prices that you won't believe. So if you stay to the end of the show, the 20% discount code is the way to go. So our different discount code this week is we're going to go ahead and use anniversary. So you guys are this week, those who listen to the show are going to go ahead and get a 2-day head start on everybody else that, when we're going to do our 2-year anniversary sale. So you guys get an extra 2-day head start on them. Of course, join our Patreon. You guys know the deal. cgiant.com. Use the promo code Niner Faithful Radio. Get those tickets. Preseason's right around the corner. And I'm assuming that they're only going to go up. So getting your tickets right now would probably be the cheapest that you'd probably be able to get it for. And, I think that's it. I mean, pretty much everybody knows the routine by now. We'd like to thank you to our new subscribers. The show will be up on NinerFaithfulRadio.com tomorrow. We got a couple of new surprises that we're going to announce on Wednesday's Fan Interaction show. So I'll go ahead and make sure that everybody is notified of that. Go ahead and follow Adam at 49ers Insider on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at NinerFaithfulR and Facebook and Instagram at Niner Faithful Radio. I shall see y'all next week. Anything else you got to say, Adam?
We'll be giving some more training camp updates and so forth next week's show, I guess you can say. So other than that, everything's all good.
We're all good. All right. So till then, see y'all same bad time, same bad channel. Till then, faith, love, and happiness. Go Niners. All right, bro. I'll hit you.